What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs like the founders of P90X, Atari, Mark Devine from SealFit, and many more, and how they overcome big challenges in life and business. Our sponsor today is Rise 25, which I co-founded with my business partner, John Corcoran. Rise 25 we create 100% outsourced VIP special events or mini conferences for software companies or conference organizers. We basically bring together their highest level customers to help them connect and collaborate so that they can get their business to the next level. And what it does is it helps them get more referrals, increase retention with their highest level customers, and get more engaged new customers. So we do them all over the country. We just did them in one in Chicago. We've done them the past year or two in Austin. We did a barbecue tour. You appreciate that, Mike. Santa Barbara, San Diego, New York, Sonoma, Las Vegas, and many more. So if your company sees the value of bringing your highest level customers together to connect and collaborate, go to rise25.com and email us, and we'll see if your community qualifies. And I want to give a big thank you to Cuvee Dave, founder of Glider.io, for introducing me to today's guest. I'm very excited. We have Mike McKim, co-founder of Cuvee Coffee. Cuvee Coffee roasting company has provided independent coffee houses and coffee enthusiasts with sustainable artisan blends, single origin, and estate coffees. And I couldn't believe this, Mike, because you look really young, since 1998. Seems like forever ago. He also is a board chairman at the nonprofit Operation Supply Drop that supports today's active duty military and their families. Cuvee is a nationally recognized specialty coffee roaster with its roots firmly established in Texas. And Cuvee Coffee and their cold brew can be found at cuveecoffee.com. It can also be found at Whole Foods, H-E-B, Central Market, Target, and soon to be limited Safeways. Mike, thanks for joining me.
Jeremy, thanks for having me.
I wanted to start off, you sat at a round table at Bunker Labs. Okay? What's Bunker Labs, first of all?
Bunker Labs is a nationwide organization that is for veteran entrepreneurs. It's basically kind of their pillars are education, community, networking and connection. So you've got veteran entrepreneurs from all walks of life who are in various stages from, startup to growth stages, all kinds of businesses. I'm the only coffee guy that I know of involved.
Was it like a local thing, or where was it held when you went to that round table?
The round table, I work with Bunker Labs Austin. Okay. So their Austin chapter, I think they have chapters in 20 plus cities.
Got it. So what happened at the round table?
That was a really cool experience for me. I got invited, and Jonathan, one of the founders of Bunker Labs, said, hey, make sure you bring some cold brew. No problem. I get there. The guest who comes into the conference room is Howard Schultz. So
people don't know who Howard Schultz is.
Yeah, the founder and soon-to-be ex-CEO of Starbucks.
Yeah. He didn't tell you this ahead of time. He just told you bring cold brew.
Just bring cold brew. Yep. So that was super exciting because when I first got into coffee, the first coffee business book that I ever read was his book, Pour Your Heart Into It.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a bummer, too, because I looked for that book. I wanted to take it and have him autograph it. Unfortunately, I have a bad habit of loaning books out that I really like, and I usually don't get them back.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was really cool. It was a humbling experience. We basically went around the table, and we had like 30, 60 seconds to give our previous military experience and what we're doing now. Right. When it came to me, I give my military background and then say I own a little coffee company here in Austin. He says, "Oh, what's it called?" I said Cuvee coffee. He says, you have that nitro cold brew, don't you?
Wow.
I was, well, yes, sir, I do. He said, did you bring any? I said, well, yes, sir, I did. And so I got a great picture of him chugging one of my
saw it.
brews. Yeah, it was a.
He liked it.
He liked it, man. He really genuinely liked it. Yeah.
That is pretty cool. Now, what I thought was interesting, Mike, about researching this is the way you introduced yourself around the table. You said, I joined the Navy out of high school and served during the Gulf War, that I failed out of the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy.
Yep.
Why did you introduce yourself like that?
I think it's really important, to acknowledge and embrace, genuine failures, totally. Right? And it's just part of who I am. And especially when I'm talking with a lot of other entrepreneurs, it's kind of a critical part of my story, because I like to let people know that I'm nothing special. I'm not particularly intelligent. I don't have a lot of business training. There are just certain things that I've done in my life that have helped me get, to the point that I am now. Unfortunately, failing out of college was one of them.
What is it that separates you think? If you said,
I think the common theme, as I think back on, my story, and as I relay my story to other entrepreneurs, is I'm relentlessly persistent.
Yeah.
So, an example of that is I was a terrible high school student, but for some reason I decided, I'm going to join the military, straighten myself out, join the Navy, and then I got this goal. I said, you know what, I want to go to the Naval Academy. And so I spent the next 4 years busting my tail, trying to apply for the Naval Academy. Literally, the admissions chief that I was talking to, no matter where I was in the world, I was calling him once a week for 4 years in a row, calling him once a week. Hey, Master Chief, Petty Officer McKim here. Just want you to know I took this college course over here in Japan. I'm sending it in, and just wore this guy out. And then what happened was I was about to age out, and I guess there's a committee of admin folks at all the different federal service academies. He said, look, man, we don't have a spot for him in Annapolis. Does anybody have a spot for this kid? He's about to age out. And somebody at the Merchant Marine Academy said, yeah, we got a spot. We'll put him on the wait list. If somebody turns down their appointment, he's in. And 5 days later, I was being discharged from the Navy and reporting to Kings Point, New York for school, and get my head shaved again, and going through boot camp all over. But yeah, it was that persistent. It was that persistence.
Where do you think you get that from?
I don't know, man. It's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that, and I can't think back to my childhood. I don't remember.
What did your parents do?
My dad was a pilot, and my mom worked at Children's Hospital. She was director of neurology and sleep disorder there.
Like, how do you teach persistence? Right? I mean, it's almost ingrained. It seems ingrained in you, in a sense.
I would agree. I think where it comes from for me is I don't like not having an answer.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it's not acceptable. Even if the answer is no, I just want the answer. I don't want things left open-ended.
So what was it like serving in the Gulf War?
You know what? I always tell people joining the Navy was absolutely the best thing that I ever did. I was kind of heading down the wrong path, hanging out with the wrong people, had a problem with authority. And so it just gave me, it allowed me to become part of something great instead of being part of, a bunch of not great stuff.
Yeah.
So it was an amazing experience. I spent a lot of time with some great people. And it's really funny through the magic of social media. I just had somebody post something on, I don't know if it's Instagram or Facebook, and it was a picture of me and 3 other dudes that were in our squadron. A photo from 30 years ago. And
Wow.
I was like, wow, this is crazy. Yeah.
That's cool to see.
Yeah.
What do you remember from your experience there that you bring into your business?
I think leadership is probably one of them. So I do not consider myself a natural leader, but the fact that I got to work for some really great leaders and some really poor leaders, I think I learned my own style of leadership, or what would work for me.
What's your style? What do you consider your style?
Leading by example. I mean, it's for me probably the number one thing. Everybody that I work with probably knows that there is not a single task that I would ask them to do that I wouldn't gladly do myself.
Right.
So whether it's doing dishes or scrubbing a toilet or hauling coffee sacks, I'm out there with the team,
Right.
doing what it takes.
So, Mike, what did you learn from Joe Monahan?
So much. There's a great persistent story there too. So when I got out of the Navy and transitioned back into civilian life, like a lot of vets, had a difficult transition and did all sorts of odd jobs, from delivering pizzas to telemarketing, right? And then I got introduced to this coffee thing, and I decided I wanted to build a coffee roasting business. Well, unfortunately, I was about 10 years ahead of the curve here in Texas, so I was fantastically unsuccessful at it. I went 10 months without a single paycheck, right? I was pounding the pavement in Houston, trying to get people to buy coffee from me.
What was your pitch at the time? Do you remember?
Taste my coffee. I would go into any restaurant, coffee shop, anything. I would say, taste the coffee. And we would taste coffees, and they'd be like, yeah, your coffee's better, but it's 50 cents a pound more, so I can't buy it. It was a challenge. And I remember my wife says to me one night, she says, hey, after I put Connor to bed, we need to talk. So we had our oldest son.
Nothing good follows that typically.
Nothing good follows, yeah. So she proceeded to sit down, look me in the eye, and say, so we have enough money to pay bills, 1 more month, and then we're totally broke. I was like, wow, okay. Makes sense. 10 months without a paycheck. That's, I guess, what happens. On one of my sales calls, I met a person who wanted to buy an espresso machine. I told them I can 100% get that machine for you, which I had no idea if I could or not. That's where Joe Monahan entered. I call him. I say, hey, Joe, this is Mike, Cuvee down in Texas. Remember me? He's like, yeah, sure, I remember you. By the way, we're hiring a regional manager based in Atlanta, so you won't call me anymore. You'll call her, and, that's who you buy espresso machines from. And I said, have you hired her yet? He said, no. Why? I said, I'll take the job. He said, what do you mean? I said, I haven't had a paycheck in 10 months, man. I'm broke. I'll take the job. I don't care what it pays. He's like, okay, whatever. Every morning I called him, first thing in the morning. Hey, Joe, it's Mike. I'm ready to start. Whenever you need me, I'm ready. And finally, I wore him down, and they ended up hiring me, and I spent 5 years selling espresso machines for him. And to answer your question, what I learned from him was, I call it my coffee MBA, that 5 years. I learned everything from him about coffee, about espresso, about sales, about customer service. I mean, he's the most likable salesperson I've ever met in my life. Like, he has a way of asking you a very direct, uncomfortable question, but making it comfortable. The guy's just a genius, man, and I learned a ton.
How does he do? Like, can you give me an example? I have a problem asking uncomfortable questions.
Yeah, it's just like
You remember something he actually said to someone that, like, I can't believe he just asked that, but he made it seem so effortless.
Yes, I have a perfect one. So one time, we had a couple different espresso machines, right? And there's a traditional machine, which is very hands-on, and then there's a super automatic, which is, you push a button and it does everything for you. So I'm in a sales call with Joe, and this guy, he says to Joe, I just need a machine that's idiot-proof. And Joe says to him, I won't even be able to say it in the nice way that he did. He said, well, why? Do you hire idiots? And like, he did it and didn't offend the guy. Like, it was so amazing. I just couldn't even wrap my head around it. But that's a perfect example. He could ask a very pointed question like that and not piss somebody off.
How did you meet Joe originally?
My uncle, Carl, owns a company called Agtron out in Nevada. They make food analyzation equipment. One of the things is a coffee degree of roast analyzer. And he's the guy that Carl introduced me to coffee. And just, as I was getting into coffee, Carl knew everyone and started introducing me to different people. And Joe was just one of them I met at a trade show.
So, Mike, tell me about the transition. So you're selling the espresso machines.
Yep.
So what's the point when you realize, okay, I need to break out on my own?
It's really funny because every year, like around November, I would go through this same rant, and I would tell my wife, I'm gonna quit my job and do this coffee thing full time. And she's like, yeah, it didn't work out so great the first time. I was still roasting coffee.
Good confidence booster there.
Yeah. Still roasting
Thanks
coffee.
for the pep talk.
Yeah. I was still roasting coffee in my garage. And then at some point, my wife, Rochelle, jumped in and started taking over all the finances because I was terrible at it anyway. Bills wouldn't get paid. I've learned I'm fiscally irresponsible. And
I prefer more visionary, less operations.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, okay.
Take it. In 2006, it's my November rant, and I'm like, I'm just, do this coffee thing and all. And she looks at me and she says, you know what? I've been going over all the books, and I think you should quit your job. I was like, wow, all right. And so that was it, man. December 31st, 2006, I declared myself unemployable.
So you were roasting coffee in your garage?
Yes.
So what did that look like up until you decided to quit your full-time job?
Yeah, 2006, it was basically, the coffee thing was a weekend thing for me. And then it kind of turned into a weekend and night thing. And then in 2006, the coffee roasting had grown, my espresso machine sales had grown, and I wasn't really doing either job as well as I thought I could. Yeah. And I had to make a decision one way or the other.
So where were you selling it?
Coffee?
Yeah, the coffee, yeah.
What's funny, we were in Houston at the time. That's where we lived, and pretty much all of our sales were here in Austin, which is one of the reasons that we relocated the company here 11 years ago.
And so you were just in the evenings and weekends cold calling places and going into places, or?
Yeah, it was really interesting because at that time there weren't a lot of coffee roasters in Texas, and then to go a little bit deeper on that, there weren't a lot of what they call specialty coffee roasters in Texas. So the trend for specialty coffee shops was starting to rise. The internet was available, so when people got online and did research, for coffee roaster in Texas, we just always popped up because there wasn't really any competition.
Yeah. So, Mike, you leave, and that's a tough decision, right? Not just financially, but you're working with your mentor.
Yes.
Right? So how did that discussion go?
You know what? It was as everything is with Joe, it was a very comfortable conversation, and man, he was happy. He was super happy.
Yeah. So favorite products? What are some of the most popular products?
For whole bean coffee, I would say our house espresso blend. So home enthusiasts who have espresso machines in their home, we sell a lot of our espresso blend. And then cold brew. I mean, cold brew is, especially now with the weather heating up here in Texas, and the popularity of cold brew in the beverage category, it's by far our most popular product.
So when did you decide to start to experiment and introduce cold brew to your line?
Funny story, it was, so after I quit my job, after I left with Joe, the one thing that they did do is they kept me as a consultant to work with other salespeople in different parts of the country for 2007. So I did a little bit of work with them. And it was nice because it gave me a little bit of a cushion financially. Yeah.
Makes it a little easier transition probably.
Yes, very much so. I went to, I think I was in Sedona with one of the sales guys, and we're at a coffee shop. And there's all these high school age kids coming up to the counter, ordering a drink, and he pours the drink out of a beer tap, hands them the drink, and then off they go. I watched this over and over and over, and finally I asked the guy, I'm like, what the heck are you serving these kids? Because, I assumed a beer tap, it was some sort of beer alcohol drink. He takes me in the back, he goes, man, let me show you what I'm doing. And he's brewing coffee hot, dumping it into a homebrew keg, adding milk and vanilla syrup, and then putting it on tap and serving it. And I was like, this is genius. I come back, all of our wholesale customers in Texas, I tell them the same thing. The cold brew that you're making, put it on tap and people will lose their mind. And every single person told me that was the dumbest thing that they've ever heard. So that was in 2007. And then I just, honestly, I couldn't shake the idea of, cold brew on tap. And I think the catalyst that rekindled my desire to chase down cold brew stuff was I read an article that said 85% of the tea that's consumed in the U.S. is consumed over ice. And I thought, okay, this, why does tea get all the love? Coffee has a place. So I started working on cold brew and a formulation and a recipe, and then got introduced to the whole nitro thing via Left Hand's Nitro Milk Stout beer. And I was like, this is what we need to do with coffee. We need to make it nitro. This is cool. So then I went down that rabbit hole and in 2011 launched Nitro Cold Brew in kegs.
How hard was that process? It seems like it'd be quite a undertaking.
It's, it's not difficult to do, but it's difficult to do well and consistent. So at the beginning it was sketchy. Some was super nitro, some was, minimal amount of nitro. But now, the stuff that we do now, we built a new facility, moved in earlier this year, and we use all the latest technology so that we can be consistently great and consistently consistent.
So when did you're doing kegs of it, but you guys do cans too?
Yes. So the end game was to always do cans. The problem was nitro beers in general always have this thing called a widget in them, right? And a widget is just a little device that discharges nitrogen gas, creates turbulence. And so we were having a hard time canning the product and getting an acceptable nitro effect. Of course, the only person that had a widget was Guinness, and they didn't license it to anyone. Guinness.
That's what I think of when you say that. Yeah.
And I was about to give up on that dream of,
You give up? Come on.
Nitro coffee in a can. And then I read this press release. Oscar Blues uses new widget can technology to can their Old Chub Nitro beer. So I get on the phone, call Oscar Blues, and I'm like, hey, can I learn about this? And they're like, sure, come on out, can beer with us for a couple days. So I did that, and then fortunately the Ball Corporation, who makes the widget cans, is in Colorado as well. So I went back with product, did a bunch of lab testing with them in their new widget cans, and then 2014 we're the first people in the world to launch Nitro cold brew in a can.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to hear your thought process too on the ingredients, right? Like when those people had it on tap, they were mixing it with other things, and yours, I believe, is just black. There's no sugar or anything in it.
Yes.
Is
so
there
the first product we rolled out it's just the Nitro black coffee. So it's coffee, water, and nitrogen. That's it. And the reason is because that's what I drink, right? I kind of made the product for myself, like a lot of the products that we do here. And then, we were also, first to market with that product. So we really just didn't know what we didn't know, what the consumer was going to like, wasn't going to like. So black coffee is what we launched with first. Now, you go into the grocery store and there's a gazillion cold brews. But everybody's got vanilla and chocolate and salted caramel and all that. And I'm like, you know what? That's not the path I want to take. I want to go a different direction. So I'm a big proponent of cannabidiol, CBD. And so we launched one with hemp oil, right? So it's got 10 milligrams. Every can has 10 milligrams of CBD hemp in it. Once again, it's a product that I take. And so I made that product for myself. Not knowing that CBD is one of the hottest things in the fitness industry.
Right.
So athletes have just gravitated towards that. And then, of course, all the pro hemp and pro marijuana people gravitate towards it too, just because. And then the product that we're doing our first production run next week is horchata, which is another one that's just, you don't see it on the shelf. But at our coffee bar, we do lots of different concoctions, and we've been doing horchata.
Testing ground.
It's our test kitchen, 100%. We've been doing horchata cold brew for a few years, and every time it's on the menu, it's our number one selling drink.
Wow!
So that just seemed like low hanging fruit.
So the cold brew nitro hemp oil coffee. What are some of the misconceptions that you hear about this product or hemp oil in general? Because there's a lot of different, thoughts, and some are accurate and some are not. Yep.
So the challenge that we face, not being a state where marijuana is legal, recreational marijuana is legal, is CBD can be made from marijuana or hemp, right? When it's made from marijuana, it contains THC, which is psychoactive.
Right.
When it's made from hemp, it contains trace amounts of THC and it's non-psychoactive.
Right.
So this is the main reason that we call it hemp oil on the can instead of CBD, because we have to make sure that people understand it's hemp.
Even though technically it's CBD, it's just made from a hemp plant.
It's made from it's made from cannabis or hemp.
So do people avoid like gray areas by not calling it CBD, even though technically it is CBD? It just comes from, people don't differentiate between marijuana and hemp. They just associate CBD with marijuana, which is maybe a gray area for states that are not legal. Is that
exactly?
Because I don't remember seeing products, you could tell me, that say CBD. It doesn't really specify, at least on the cover of it, if it's from hemp or marijuana. Are they required to just disclose, okay, this CBD is from hemp or marijuana, or do people just throw CBD around because it's not, it's newer? I don't know.
I think what I've experienced is, you go to a place like Colorado where recreational marijuana is legal. CBD, it doesn't matter what it's made from,
right?
Because it's legal, right?
Well, it just will have different amounts of THC, though, right?
It will have THC in it, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is the biggest misconception is people don't realize that hemp and marijuana are two totally different things. Hemp is an agricultural product, and marijuana is psychoactive, right? So to answer your question, that's probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah. I want, Mike, what's interesting is you've set up a lot of, like, not just local relationships in Texas, but a lot of global relationships. I want, if you could just talk a little bit about that, because you're doing a lot with just actual people harvesting the coffee, right?
Yes. Yeah, I was really fortunate. So I tend to listen to people that I respect when they give me advice. I tend to listen to them. And one of the things my uncle said when I got into the business was, whatever you do, pay higher prices for higher quality coffee, raw product, and people will notice a difference. And he was 100% right. So I just kind of followed that mentality. Our coffee was always more expensive than everyone else's because we were paying higher prices. And then I was really fortunate to be, in those years that I worked for Joe Monahan, he plugged all of our salespeople. He plugged us into the Specialty Coffee Association of America. Or it used to be the SCAA. Now it's just the Specialty Coffee Association. But that was at the time when there was a group of coffee roasters who were pioneering a trend called direct trade, right? And direct trade was the idea of, going and working directly with farmers and paying, higher than fair trade wages and making sure they're good stewards of the land and all that sort of stuff. Since I was selling espresso machines to all these guys, kind of by default, I went along for that ride with them. And since I was a coffee roaster also, I was interested in that. So I was an early adopter of that direct trade model and got to learn from some of the smartest coffee people who were developing that model. And that was in 2002 maybe. And I took my first trip to a coffee growing country and expected to get there and just let a farmer know how thankful I was for the work they were doing and all that, and quickly realized that they were thankful that I was buying coffee from them. And the other people that we were with were buying coffee from them, like very thankful.
Right.
And that's when I realized, wow, like we can really make an impact on not just one farmer or one family, but as we grow, really a whole community. And so that becomes powerful.
Yeah. What did you learn about visiting them, about how they live? I'm sure it opens your eyes to different things, I imagine.
It does. I think the thing that I learned really quickly was not to compare anyone's living conditions to our living conditions here in the U.S. Right? It's easy to go into somebody's, home and they have dirt floors and go, "Oh my God, these poor people, they have dirt floors." Well, what's wrong with a dirt floor? There's nothing wrong with a dirt floor,
Judging them off of our own maybe experiences or standards of how we would live.
100%. Yep.
Yep. What were other differences? What were some noticeable differences that you saw that maybe in the beginning were a little bit shocking, but afterwards it just becomes, how they live? Like you mentioned the dirt floors. Are there any other examples like that may surprise people?
Well, yeah, depending on the country. Look, you go somewhere like Costa Rica, it's kind of like being in Southern California or something. It's that place's infrastructure's great. It's easy to travel in, but go somewhere like Ethiopia. This is this is probably not a great story, but I'm actually literally in a government office in Ethiopia, and I've got to use the restroom. And so somebody takes me down the hallway to the restroom and then comes in with a bucket and a rag because they don't use toilet paper. And this is in a government office, right? And so you're expected to do your business, with your hands and then wash your hands in this bucket of water. So that was really eye-opening.
Totally. Yeah, I think my in-laws went on a trip and they were telling our family and my kids specifically that they had to, go to the bathroom in a hole, and then my kids proceeded to say, "I'm never going there." They just associate that place with going to the bathroom in a hole, and then they've warded off. But your wife has been really influential in the business.
Yes.
What's her role?
She's the CFO.
Okay.
So anything that has to do with finance. And then she's also, she's the reason everything, part of the identity of the company is the color blue. So
right,
everything
yeah.
we do is blue, and she was the reason for that.
Why?
She said, look, if you go into the grocery store and you walk down the coffee aisle, every single bag looks the same. It's either plain brown or some sort of earth tone. She said, we need to do something totally different, so let's do blue bags. And I was like, blue? That's dumb. We should do earth tones because that's what everybody else does. And she was like, nope, we're doing blue. And I was like, all right, I guess we're doing blue.
It's a different type of blue, though, also, in addition.
I agree, yeah. It's funny, our bag manufacturer, he came to visit, I don't know, a couple years ago, and he sat down in the office and proceeded to let us all know that we would be amazed how many people call them and ask for Cuvee blue.
Oh, wow.
On packaging, yeah.
It's a new color.
It's a thing.
How do you decide to release or come up with a new product? Because I imagine the ones you have keep you quite busy.
Yeah, it's funny. I am notorious for, I constantly think about what's next. Like, I can't stop thinking about what's next,
right.
Which is a blessing and a curse. The downside of it is I'll come up with an idea, I'll start a project, I'll get about 70% into it, and then I'll be bored with that project because I'm thinking about the next idea.
Right.
So, yeah, I pretty much never stop thinking about what's next.
So who puts the slap down on you not going forward with something? Is there someone you have to run it by to say, hey, no? No, once again, people that I respect, I definitely ask advice and listen to what they tell me. So there's usually, there's a few people, if I'm unsure about an idea, there's a few people that I'll run it by, and just ask them to punch holes in it and know that it's not personal if they tell me it's dumb, or it won't work, or the reasons that they don't think it'll work. I actually like that type of challenge. So it sounds like early on the team is you and your wife in a garage. So who do you hire first when you start to, okay, now you go, I'm going at this full time, I'm going to make this work. Who do you bring on? Or what type of positions?
The first guy I hired was named Dan, and I hired him to do sales because I was doing all the roasting. So yeah, that was hire number one, and then the second guy that I hired was the roaster to help with roasting.
And what's been a key position in the company that maybe was surprising? That maybe you thought, yeah, this is a necessity, but actually helped move the ball forward?
Obviously finance. I mean, if I didn't have somebody competent doing that, if I was doing it, this would be a disaster over here. The other one is I'm going back to, I think we talked a little bit about this. I'm not a very good operations person. So I've got a director of production operations, and a guy named Logan, and he is just, he runs a tight ship, and all the stuff that I wouldn't do very well, he does very well. So that's definitely, in order for us to scale this business, that's a role that I had to step out of and put somebody good in there.
What does the evolution of the facilities look like? Again, garage. What's next after that?
Yeah. Crappy little 2,000 square foot warehouse in a strip center.
Okay.
In Houston, Texas. Then the place that we're in here now, we built this building. It's 4,000 square feet, where we do all of our coffee roasting, and we carved out a small corner, like maybe a couple hundred square feet, where we were doing cold brew in the corner of the roasting facility. And now the new cold brew facility that we just opened up is 11,000 square feet. And
huge.
All we do there is cold brew.
Where do you have your sights set on? Who else should be carrying this that isn't yet?
Well, right now, I think we've always just focused in Texas, right? Never really sought business outside of the state. And a lot of that was kind of by design. You know, the business really has been a lifestyle business for Rochelle and I for a long time. And, a couple years ago, as cold brew was starting to take off, we just had the conversation, look, we can keep doing what we're doing, and it's a good lifestyle business, or man, we can dive in head first and see if we can blow this up. And we obviously chose the latter. So the plan is to get product outside of Texas more. I think we've done a great job here, but there's a lot of country outside of Texas that's uncovered right now.
Totally. What's been some of the big challenges?
I think there's a couple things. One, we've never taken a loan or anything like that. We've always grown the business with working capital, which is good and it's sustainable, and we've always been worried about profitability and all that sort of stuff. The challenge is that that's slow growth usually. So now, I think one of the challenges is gut checking ourselves and dumping the amount of money into, the new facility and hiring, more employees and all that sort of stuff, knowing that we're going to burn cash for a little while before, the sales catch up to all the infrastructure that we've built.
Yeah, totally.
So that's a challenge.
People always love to hear different tools or software people use to run their business. What are some things you use on a daily or weekly basis? I was just looking at the website. I don't know what type of platform you use. What are some of the things you use to run the business?
Well, the website, thank goodness Cuvee is in charge of that. So he's doing a total digital overhaul for us. We actually sell a lot of coffee online on our website, even though it's a crappy website and it's not intuitive and the shopping cart kind of sucks. And so we're redoing that, which I think we can increase revenue tenfold online just with somebody smart handling that. Man, I'm sorry. What was the original question?
Are there any tools or software you use?
Yeah. So for the coffee bar, we use Slack for communication, which is a great tool because it pops
Slack
up on my phone when somebody sends me a message. And then here on this side of the house, we use a really cool cloud-based platform called Cropster. And Cropster is a software that allows us to track our green coffee inventory. It allows us to keep track of all of our roast profiles, and then we can take those coffees, bring them into the lab, taste them, put all our tasting notes in, and that way everything's synced together.
That's cool.
Yeah. So from a consistency and quality control standpoint, that tool is massive.
Love it.
Really like that program.
I always ask, Mike, first of all, thank you for doing this. I know you have a million things going on. It's really valuable to hear your lessons and stories. I always ask, since it's Inspired Insider, what's been the lowest moment, and then on the flip side, what's been a really proud moment? What's been a low moment that you had to push through?
My lowest moment, and it's such an easy question, and it's a story that just I hate it every time it comes up. But my lowest moment was I was, basically in between. It was after I quit college at Kings Point, or left, failed out, whatever. Man, I had no idea what I was going to do. I felt like such a loser, for not being able to push through that. And then I took a job delivering pizzas, and the guy that was the driver on shift the same time I was on medication for audio hallucinations. And I would stand back there and talk to this guy, Kenny, and that was a dark time for me, man. I just felt so bad about myself. So that was by far my lowest point.
How do you deal with that? Like, get out of that funk? I mean, it seems right now, looking back, it seems like right now in this time, well, yeah, I just kind of, you're in a good place, right? But then you weren't, so it's a different story when you're in the situation.
Yeah. I think this is something I try and teach my sons, is the power of networking. And I didn't realize it back then, but just because of people I had met, people that I knew, friends that I had, somebody helped me get a job getting out of the pizza joint and getting into AT&T and doing telemarketing. Right, so that was my introduction to sales, which is, that's pretty much what I've done the majority of my adult life now, is sales. So I think to answer your question, I think it was the network that helped drag me to that.
Yeah.
And then I'm also, just in general, I'm not one to throw myself a pity party. Like, maybe I'll let myself feel sorry about something for, a brief moment, but then I'm like, okay, I gotta get out of this on my own.
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful. The network, if someone's in a bad place, they could call someone that they trust, or that they, could help them, pull them out, or maybe slap some sense into them. So what about the proud moment? What's been a proud moment in the journey?
Man, there's been a lot. I'm always proud when somebody has worked for us for a while, and then they come to me because they got bit by the entrepreneurial bug, and they want to go out and start their own business, whether it's a coffee business, a coffee shop, a coffee roasting business, or something totally different. That always makes me feel proud. Man, when we built this 4,000 square foot facility, before we did this little, ceremony, me and my wife and the guy that was pouring the slab, and, he let me put the shovel in the dirt and take the first scoop of dirt out. And I just remember just tears streaming out of my face that, wow, this is actually going to be a thing. This is going to happen. I think that was super cool.
So it was created out of nothing. There was nothing there before.
Nothing. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, man, another one. So I have two sons. One will be a senior in high school this year. The other one, he just finished up his first year at the United States Merchant Marine Academy.
Oh, wow.
He made it further than I did already. But the fact that he came home from a high school college fair and said, I think I want to go to Kings Point. And I was like, what? That's crazy. Sorry.
It's like phone a friend. We'll bring him on.
Yeah. So that was another, on a personal note, that's a super for me.
What sparked that, you think? Was it stories from you? Was it? I mean, it sounds like you were surprised. It's not like you were pushing him to do that.
I absolutely wasn't, man. I try and, I understand, and I think a lot of us go through the same thing. The one person we listen to least in life as young males is usually our father. At some point, we think we know more than them, and whatever they say is dumb. You just do the opposite. So I try never to force my boys to do anything. I just try and give them advice and let them make their own decisions. So yeah, when he came home and said, "Hey, I want to go to a Federal Service Academy. I want to go to Kings Point," I was like, "Well, all right, I'll help you any way I can." And,
what was his reasoning?
That's a good question. Connor has always wanted to take a different path than his peers. So, living here in Austin, Texas, when everybody else was playing football or baseball, he was like, I think I want to play ice hockey. It's like, ice hockey? What? That's weird.
It goes with cold brew.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I think that he's always wanted to take a different path, and that's probably the reason he went this direction.
That's cool. Mike, what's Operation Supply Drop? I know we talked about it in the very beginning.
Yep.
What is it?
Yeah, Operation Supply Drop is a nonprofit that does a couple things. Kind of the meat of the program and the introduction to the Operation Supply Drop program is we send care packages to deployed troops, and those care packages consist of gaming consoles, controllers, and video games. That's how people get introduced to Operation Supply Drop. And then with cool. A lot of partnerships with people like Microsoft and Starbucks and folks like that, Google, we have a lot of programs and training and a community built for people when they transition out of the military and back into civilian life. Because, I think everybody understands now that, when you're in a military environment, you have a tribe. When you're on a sports team, you've got a tribe or whatever. And then, when you're taken out of that tribe, sometimes you can be a little bit rudderless. So, being able to help people as they transition back to civilian life that's the second part and probably the most important part of Operation Supply Drop.
What helps ease that? It sounds like even for you, it's a really, really difficult transition. I imagine it's like structured, then you go to something completely a different world, essentially.
Yeah, I think yes. So there is that. I mean, your day is pretty much planned for you. So there's not a whole bunch of planning involved. And then the other part is I think it's tough because when you spend time in the military, everybody kind of thinks and acts similar. And then you get out of the military, you get into a civilian job, and you're like, man, why don't these people think like everybody else that I used to work with? Well, because, a lot of them weren't in the military, so they don't think. And you go through this struggle. You're like, man, well, if they would just understand, if they would do it the military way, they would. And really, it's like, oh, no, you're not in the military anymore. You need to transition back to civilian life, not try and make civilian life more military-like. I think that's probably one of the biggest hurdles that a lot of people have to overcome. Yeah.
Mike, I want to be the first one to thank you. This has been great. Everyone should check out CuveeCoffee.com. It's CUVEE. Coffee.com. Where else should we point people towards online or anywhere else?
Well, all the social platforms, everything is at Cuvee Coffee. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that sort of stuff.
Cool. All right.
And then anybody that wants to connect with me, I'm just at Mike McKim.
Great. Thank you, Mike, again. Fantastic.
Yeah, thanks,
Everyone
Jeremy.
check out CuveeCoffee.com and try out their cold brew and their nitro hemp oil cold brew.
Perfect.
All right.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like $100 grand.